Hey there, Vince here, and welcome to a very ubiquitous circuit rewind. First, apologies if you can hear fan noise because I'm playing with a different laptop today and it's got fans. And they're loud and I can hear them, and I didn't think about that when I set this up. So around the studio here, you mainly just see the video game wall behind me and a table. Doesn't really change too much other than whatever I place on the table. However, there's been a crap load of updates around the studio over the past, it's actually the whole entire year really. And a lot of that you haven't been able to see yet, but it's been improving things behind the scenes before I get to the actual visual stuff, which is behind me. That's gonna come later this month. One of the largest updates that I've done very recently though is to replace all of my networking gear in the entire studio. Previously I was running a mismatch of things. I had some MikroTik equipment, I had Dell, there was TP-Link, even a Netgear device, and a bunch of other little miscellaneous things here, there, everywhere else, right? So I've decided to replace all of that with just Ubiquiti hardware at this point. One of the big reasons for that is that as the amount of equipment that I have expands, I wanted to have a centralized network controller for everything. Just a central place I can manage and configure all of the hardware, because there is quite a bit of it here for all the different things that I do. Because while some of you may have a home lab, I more or less have a home prod at this point. Like, I'm running actual production workloads on this environment. So previously, the access points were managed through TP-Link. Each MikroTik switch was managed independently, and there was, I think, 8 of them in the studio here. And there's just all this different hardware is independently managed, so I wanted to bring it all together in one location. My core server infrastructure is all running FreeBSD. And so one of the tasks I wanted to see if I could do with this is see if I can get the Ubiquiti controller running on FreeBSD, because that's the difference between Ubiquiti and a lot of other ecosystems like MikroTik, is that they have a centralized controller and they let you just install and run it on whatever hardware you want, which is super awesome for me. So today I'm going to walk you through the process of installing and configuring and getting at least the initial configuration up of a Ubiquiti controller, and I'm going to adopt a couple devices to it. I have a switch here and I have an access point here, so let's see if we can get these up and running. So here I am on a FreeBSD machine. I'm actually logged into a FreeBSD server on my FreeBSD laptop. I'm going to search and see which version of the Unifi controller is currently available. As new versions come out over time, the package name gets updated for the current version. Here we can see that there is the Unifi controller version 9. The external DB is if you want a little bit more customization with your setup. That allows you to have the actual database that the controller uses on another machine, but we want to have this as just one single package that we install and manage super easy. So I'm going to do package, install Unifi 9. And it has a bunch of dependencies with it that it needs to install too, and that's fine. It figures all that out on its own. So I'll just say yes, and it's just going to start downloading, and then it's going to install. That whole process only took a few seconds, no big deal. It says here about the OpenJDK might require proc, but in my experience that has not actually been needed for the exact use case that we're doing right now. So the next thing I'm going to do, let's just clear this out. All right, so next up I'm going to go sysrc Unifi enable equals yes. So as we can see here, previously there was no value at all, yes or no, for Unifi enable. I have now set it to yes. This enables the service within FreeBSD, however, it doesn't start the service. We can either reboot our server and it will just load on startup, or we can manually start it right now. So I'm going to go, let's clear this again, and I'm going to do service Unifi start. And just like that, the Unifi service is now starting in the background. It'll take a few seconds to get the database up and running, and then get the web interface running and getting everything all talking to each other. What we can do now is I'm going to clear this and I'm going to go to a sockstat-L. This can show us all of the different ports that are currently listening for things on the machine right now. And the one that we care about specifically is the 8443. So by default, the Unifi controller doesn't use the normal 443 for HTTPS. They bump it up to the 8000 range, so it's 8443. Next thing I want to do is run ifconfig. This will tell me the IP address of this box. And then from here, I'm going to take the IP address, going to copy that, going to open my web browser. Let's paste that in, :8443, since we saw that's what the port number is. And specifically, this needs to be HTTPS, which is telling us instead of HTTP. So let's change that. It's using a self-signed certificate right now, so we get a security warning, but we know this is our server, so we're perfectly cool with that. So let's sign in, and I have to tell it that I am indeed me. And from here, we can see that the service is up and running, obviously because we're connected to it. And if I come down here to Unifi devices, magically, we have a network switch and an access point that we can adopt into our network. So I'm going to just start by clicking adopt on both of those. Now it's getting them ready. This takes a minute or two. Sometimes it needs to update firmware and it pushes configurations and whatnot to it. All right, so let's start with the network switch since it's ready. I'm going to go to ports, and just like that, I can see all of the ports that are active on this thing. Let's make this window bigger. And here we can see that, for instance, there's the laptop, there's the upstream connection back into the main network, and then port 1, it shows that that is our access point, so it knows that that's connected. And that's part of what's nice about this interface, is that multiple devices in the same ecosystem will now show up here as kind of a unified setup. Also, with this being PoE through the switch, I can power cycle it right from here. And it looks like the access point is now fully up and working. We have configuration for all of our networking stuff right in one dashboard. If I add more and more devices, they'll all just show up here in this nice, awesome, convenient list of things. I can go and assign different names to these ports. I can assign names to each of these devices. So if I go here to this here, I can say, not that, I want the device itself, not the port. I can say, hey, this is now my Lappy. Apply that. And so if I were to unplug the device, move it to another port, it'll take a few seconds for the dashboard to update itself with the new status of everything. And just like that, it's showing the laptop in the new port. I move the cable over and it knows that the device is now in this other port. And that's the kind of stuff I wanted on this dashboard. Anyway, just like that, it was fairly quick and easy to get Unifi controller up and running on FreeBSD. I could go and reboot that machine that it's installed on, and it will just load up on boot up because the service is enabled. I do this all the time as I'm doing maintenance or upgrades or whatever. But as you saw, it was quick, simple, easy, just a couple of commands in the command line. And just like that, we can start managing all sorts of stuff on the network. Maybe at some point I'll do a full deep dive into what my full network config looks like, since like I said, there's a ton of devices here. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. So until next time, later y'all.